Hey everybody, and welcome to the Fantasy.
So I keep big bills up in my heart on the dirty like blood. So ain't got no twist in my head, but I'm still dreadful.
Guess we're doing the intro. All right. Welcome to the Fantasy Fullback Dive. Brought to you by the good people at the Roto Street Journal, paving your way to fantasy excellence, acting as your lead blocker to fantasy glory. In 2023, 2024, if the Wolf dropped a 2025 big board in the next couple weeks, it wouldn't be that surprising. I'm your host, Nat the Truth Jones. With me, as always, the Wolf of Roto Street himself, and we're diving into the 2023 Part 1 NFL Free Agency podcast. There's been a lot of moves. Some of them don't mean much. Some of them mean a ton. And we're going to try to talk about the ones that mean a ton and, just kind of get back into the swing of things a little bit as we are early in the offseason. Wolf, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, Truth. I know it's been a while, so all you loyal viewers that are back seeing us for the first time in a couple months, great to see you. Thanks so much for coming back. Maybe you're new here. Awesome. And if you enjoyed the show, would love to have you come back to more by hitting that sub button and staying with us. That thumbs up button, of course, does help us grow as you enjoy the show. Please consider hitting that as well. But it feels great to be back. I've definitely hibernated these first couple months, been really diving into a screenplay, just got into a whole new passion that's been really, really fun. Would love to talk about that more with you guys another time, but we have so much to dive into, as you're alluding to. So many free agents. I know you have a limited time here with the snow day.
Well, it's a snow day. Everybody's here.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So we want to make sure to hit all of these big notes. It's only been one day of free agency and already some insane moves, plus the franchise tags, which happened last week as well. We'll dive into all of that good stuff. The early implications, will probably have a part 2 show, maybe Thursday. Who knows what day exactly this week when we have a little bit more news to dive into, because there's still plenty more dominoes to fall. But we figured with over 20 players already to talk about, let's get a part 1 in here. Let's talk about all the winners, the losers so far in fantasy from some of these big signings, big trades. Lots to break down. It just feels good to have fantasy back.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Crept up on me.
It's good to get it going again.
Tunes just posted in the comments on YouTube that Darren Waller to the Giants for a third. So
no shit, really?
And he said Tunes is usually pretty reliable, so we'll see.
Tunes is as reliable as they come. Okay, so we're gonna have some stuff to analyze on the fly here in a second. We'll wait till we get to tight end so I can at least wrap my head around that just a little bit. But wow, right as we go live, Darren Waller getting traded to the Giants, you said?
That's what Tunes said. Don't quote me on this. I'm quoting.
That's awesome.
All right, let's get into quarterbacks and leading off the quarterback news. And there are some noteworthy quarterback news. Justin Fields, obviously his value, you would have to assume that this would increase his value. DJ Moore being shipped to the Bears. And my first comment on when I saw all the pieces to this trade, I mean, obviously, I was like, okay, that's a legit receiver for Fields to be throwing to. That's potentially great for him. Can you believe how much the Bears gave up for this? Does it seem like a massive haul to you, or did I read it wrong?
Do you mean the Panthers? Like how much they gave up?
Yeah.
Yes.
No. Yes. I mean, just like the picks and everything else. Doesn't it just seem insane?
And a wide receiver 1? Absolutely. The 9th overall pick, a 2023 second rounder, a 2024 first rounder, and a 2025 second rounder as well. And DJ Moore,
who's a really good wide receiver. It just when I saw it, I was like, that must. I don't know. I'm not a GM. It seemed like not a balanced trade to me.
I feel like the Bears fleeced him. I mean, maybe the Panthers truly love. Obviously, this league does come down to the quarterback. You need your franchise guy. So I do applaud them. If you have a guy in this class that you want this to be your cornerstone for the next 10 decade here, I get why the Panthers are going for it. You need that QB to have a shot to win. So I get why they go.
So you think they're hunting Bryce Young or something?
They must love him. CJ Stroud had a great combine. We'll do a combine winners losers show eventually because I need to dive into that a bit more myself. But yes, just as a trade level, I think this was a huge win for the Bears. I think they got a ton for this first pick. And we're not the first to bring up this comparison, but think about the Texans here going for 2, and they had the number 1 all locked up.
That was awesome.
But they'll always
they had fired the guy. They had fired the guy. This is such a lesson. I was talking to my wife who could give two shits about football, and I was explaining to her what happened when this happened in real time in week 18. And she was just, she has many employees that work for her. And she was just like, this is why once you fire somebody, you don't let them hang around.
Exactly.
Because, I mean, I don't think Lovie Smith's any good or anything, but props to him.
Yeah, screwing the franchise. I mean, this truly could set your franchise back like a decade, given the haul. You look at what the Bears got, and now the Texans at least will always have that 1-point win against the Colts that meant absolutely nothing. It looks like Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. We see this happen time and time
Peyton
again.
Manning and Ryan Leaf.
There's an art of tanking, and they just did not know what to do the right way. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, just one pick can change everything, and you see what the Bears got, and man, it's just asinine that the Texans did not lose that game. But let's break down the fantasy implications here, because I think they are absolutely massive for Justin Fields, and that's why you're all here. Look no further, and I know it's such an easy dot to connect to Josh Allen gets Stephon Diggs 2 years ago. Jalen Hurts gets A.J. Brown last year. But it sometimes doesn't have to be rocket science. You got a mobile threat with a cannon arm. Justin Fields was a top 5 deep passer across the last 5 years when he entered the league. Only Mac Jones of that class had a better deep accuracy, and only Joe Burrow amongst the past 5 years before that had a better deep accuracy grade than what Fields had his senior year coming into the NFL. He had a great season slinging the ball deep. So I know he gets tons of props, deservedly so, as a runner, Justin Fields. I mean, he just broke his own record in back-to-back weeks, going 140 yards one week, then 178 yards on the ground, and almost broke Lamar Jackson's record. If he played the entire season, I guarantee you he would have broken that record. He saved my fantasy season. He became an absolute godsend. If you had Justin Fields, you know he was a cheat code last year, and his number one weapons for half the year were Dante Pettis and Equanimeous St. Brown. So this is going to be enormous for him. It really does remind me so much, and reminds everybody of Jalen Hurts, where he was a monster his first year starting and then became a legitimate cheat code the next year when you add A.J. Brown. We harped on that all last year. I said I'd rather have Jalen Hurts than Lamar Jackson for so long last year, and obviously that ended up
that was the correct take, 100%.
It was a great take. One of our best ones of last year is how we were on Jalen Hurts, and I honestly do not see much of a difference here other than maybe the play calling quality. We don't know fully yet how good Luke Getsy going to be.
I think Hurts is a little more level-headed, from what I've seen. He's actually surprisingly poised out there.
Really
that impressed me as the year went on.
Good.
I have not seen that from Fields. It's not like I've seen an absence of that necessarily from Fields, but I don't feel like he's proven that by any means. We're going to find out.
As like a winner too. Like he never won those big. He kept them competitive every game, but then just didn't
running for 150 yards or whatever. Right. He's got a lot to prove. This receiver, we've seen him pass a little. Like, I mean, his passing is not like amazing, but we've seen him just put up fantasy points like crazy. We're going to find out now how good a passer he is, because he does have a legitimate wide receiver one he can throw to now. And if he can hit him with the Carolina quarterback situation was abysmal, and Moore still got his.
And he's still ranked since 2019, top 7 in receiving yards, top 7 in targets, top 13 in fantasy points. And as you said, with pure crap throwing to him, DJ Moore. So this is huge that for him just to get Justin Fields, which, as you said, not fully proven yet as a passer. He's made some very impressive throws to some horrendous
really
level plays.
He's good.
So I think this is going to be very much like we saw with Jalen Hurts going from 3,100 passing yards to 3,700 the next year. I don't think it's going to be a Josh Allen going from 3,000 to 4,500, any type of leap like that, just because I don't think they're going to air it out at nearly that clip. But I think breaking the rushing record for quarterbacks is still in Justin Fields' play, while you now boost the ceiling as a passer, which is the exact recipe that led from Hurts going to a round 5-ish quarterback to being a cheat code. I think right now you see Justin Fields going late 3rd, early 4th in these best ball drafts, and he should be much, much closer to where Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, they're going picks, 15, 16, mid-second. I love just passing on those guys and then taking Fields a full round later. I can stack up to a receiver, a running back, and then get Fields. Boom. I don't think there's much of a gap in terms of fantasy production for these guys now that he has DJ Moore.
Agreed.
I'm just so excited for this. You look on the flip side of things too, it's certainly less exciting for the Panthers. I'll recap that real quick. This is one of the biggest stories. That's why we're diving into this one. There's some of these what we'll say means nothing, move forward. This is not one of them. But for the Panthers, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, whoever it ends up being, they're going to be walking into a pretty shitty fantasy spot, at least to start. I like Frank Reich. I think he is a good offensive mind, but who are they going to be throwing to? You're left with now Terrace Marshall, Laviska Shenault. None of them are quality number 2s, never mind number 1 wide receivers in the NFL. Sure, they're probably going to keep adding at the position, but they don't have a ton of draft capital to put a real true splash into there. So we'll see what they do around Stroud or Bryce Young. We can't really speculate till we know who's going in there. We just know it's not going to be a great situation, at least in year 1. We'll see from there.
Agreed. And yeah, we obviously went a long time on that, but that's the top story of the day. This next one also, this is the type of story that you and I could just sit here and talk about.
This could be a whole show.
For the rest of the hour that I'm here.
We wouldn't cover anything fantasy.
We could just talk about this and it would probably be fairly entertaining. At least to us it would be. We would be entertaining ourselves. There's a lot of buzz, and there has been for a while. I've been hearing like Bill Simmons say he was going to go to the Jets for like 3 months or something like that.
This isn't new buzz.
This is not new, but it has intensified. You would agree.
Yes.
Like there's stories have been coming out. There's some fairly, big ESPN names that are saying it's like a done deal. Then I've seen a couple headlines that kind of backtrack it a little bit, but it seems like he's done in Green Bay. It seems like the Jets is probably going to be his landing spot. I got a lot of thoughts on it. What are your thoughts on it? What's going on? What do you think? What's going on?
Let's just get the cat out of the bag. You guys know I absolutely hate Aaron Rodgers. For him to say in January, I'm not going to hold the Packers hostage. I understand we're still in January. March is free agency. I just need some time, like I said, to get the emotion out and figure out what's best. From then, I'm not holding anyone hostage. We've seen a darkness.
He's holding 2 teams hostage right now. Maybe some other teams on the peripheral might be being held hostage too. And he went on a fucking dark retreat.
A dark retreat.
What clarity did that bring him?
Clearly nothing. And now he's saying to the Jets, yeah, I might like to play for you, but you have to sign Randall Cobb. You have to sign Alan Lazard.
Randall Cobb.
I want OBJ now too. What if they go out and sign all these guys?
You got to sign Randall Cobb?
Yeah, Randall Cobb, franchise altering wide receiver here at this point. But
that's like Giannis having his brothers on the Bucks.
Yeah, seriously. He's listing out all these players. What if he just decides, you know what? I don't feel like coming to you, actually. I'm just going to retire after you go dump all this money to go get Randall, the fucking corpse Cobb. Like, what are we doing here? So I'm not holding franchises hostage. You're now holding not only the Packers hostage, you're holding the Jets hostage. He's not even that good. Like it's
a bad move for the Jets, man. I'm telling you. Like now, granted,
a franchise ruiner. They could be competitive for a year or 2, but like
potentially it could be. Like they could be competitive for a year or 2. I do not envision a scenario where these guys make the Super Bowl or even a significant playoff run. I could be wrong. Who knows? I've been wrong before, but to me, first of all, he's going to be insanely expensive. Insanely expensive. And you're gonna. He wasn't good last year. And let's not pretend that he was good last year. He wasn't.
A diva before he's even arrived too. Exactly. Like it's one thing if he's coming off again back-to-back MVPs a couple years ago. He is legit.
It's true.
And so let's just pretend he's there because I could just go, as you said, we could do a whole
podcast. Let's pretend he's MVP caliber Rodgers, which is a big if. But let's pretend that for the sake of it.
Let's say they're getting Aaron Rodgers. Let's say this is the Aaron Rodgers we've seen the last few years, and they're getting him. We know he can facilitate monster. We're just talking about fantasy at this point because, again, if I put emotions into this, I will just spew the rest of the podcast on how much of a buffoon and asshole this guy is. I never have been able to.
If this guy's MVP caliber Aaron Rodgers, we know how it's going to go. He's going to lose in the first round of the playoffs.
Exactly.
But that has nothing to do with fantasy, so let's go.
So what's going to happen fantasy if Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers and he just lands with the Jets? Well, one is Garrett Wilson is going to go to the moon. He's already going to go to the moon because it's not going to be Zach Wilson throwing him the rock.
Good point.
This is insane. Garrett Wilson as a rookie averaged 19.27 points per game in games without Zach Wilson, 8.37 with Zach Wilson. He would have been on pace for 1,556 yards and 11 touchdowns on 105 catches with any quarterback other than Zach Wilson. So Joe Flacco, Mike White, no world beaters there. Aaron Rodgers would be a significant upgrade over anyone Garrett Wilson
sure have to think so.
And he already was showing he could be a top 7 fantasy wide receiver with garbage thrown to him as a rookie adjusting to the league. He was my number one rookie in last year's class. He showed every reason why. Every layer of the field is open with this guy. He tacks the ball. He does everything. Garrett Wilson is an absolute stud. And Aaron Rodgers, as much as I hate him, the man can facilitate some monster wide receiver numbers. Look no further than Davante Adams, who broke fantasy for 2 seasons in a row just a couple years ago in this Nathaniel Hackett-led offense. I hate Nathaniel Hackett. Trust me, the complete and utter bozo. But he does know how to coordinate and work with Aaron Rodgers at least. And he knows how to just pound and pepper a wide receiver one going deep. So I think Garrett Wilson, that's really the takeaway here. I wouldn't have that much interest in Aaron Rodgers. Even in his MVP years, he wasn't that insane of a fantasy quarterback. He was top 12-ish guy.
Good. I mean,
but
he was a
Garrett
starter.
Wilson, that is the takeaway. And even Elijah Moore, because we've seen Rodgers sustain multiple wide receivers. And I do think Elijah Moore is still a great talent with anybody other than Zach Wilson. Almost 14 points per game compared to 5.46 points per game with Zach Wilson. He was on pace for 1,030 yards and 8 touchdowns, 78 catches across his first 2 years with anyone other than Zach Wilson. I mean, he had a 22.1% target share and 17.7 fantasy points per game, Elijah Moore, as a rookie over his final 7 games once Zach Wilson was out. So he also showed wide receiver one potential there too. So both of those guys, Elijah Moore going significantly later, pick 120-ish right now. You got to just factor in a quarterback upgrade and love him at that price. But Garrett Wilson, he's a second rounder right now in fantasy drafts. And honestly, if Aaron Rodgers is the guy there, second round is more than fair. I'd look at this guy at that first, second turn, honestly, as that next type of Justin Jefferson. Already looked amazing as a rookie, then takes that next level to elite and utter stardom. I mean, Aaron Rodgers would facilitate that because I do think Garrett Wilson is that good.
I agree with you on the talent level of Wilson. And obviously in fantasy, you got to take some chances, and maybe this is a good chance to take. You're talking about more.
Absolutely.
I'm skeptical on Rodgers. I get that he's going to be an upgrade, but I'm not sure I'm going to want any stock in this guy. I mean, obviously, I don't want any stock in him, but I mean, I'm just like I'm extremely wary of anything touching this guy at this point. And I get that even the corpse of Aaron Rodgers is better than Zach Wilson.
Oh, not even close.
I get it. All right, fair enough. We will definitely follow up on this Rodgers story.
Yeah, we will see.
I assure you that the Wolf and the Truth have
there.
more to say on this. We might just do an Aaron Rodgers special whenever he lands somewhere. Just go 20 minutes. He would get off on that so much.
Let's come like 10 beers deep and then just talk about Aaron Rodgers. I'm sure that will be very civil.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, next one, Jimmy G to the Raiders. We're getting these are lesser stories, but still significant. Yeah. Jimmy G to the Raiders. Obviously that attached to Josh Jacobs, attached to Davante Adams. So the next banner, the next story is about Derek Carr going to the Saints.
Yes.
I consider these similar moves. I consider these kind of like lateral moves. Not exactly shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic, because I don't think either of these is like a sunken, awful, pathetic, no chance franchise. But neither one of these moves the needle too much for me. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, similarly, I'm with you. It's not Garrett Wilson suddenly being a top 5 potential wide receiver type of upgrade for either franchise. I think both of them play very similarly. They're conservative. They don't, take great deep shots even when they do. So I don't see a whole lot of fantasy implications to these moves, other than it does keep some stability for Josh Jacobs and Davante Adams.
But
you give somebody that we know can get them the rock. We've seen Deebo Samuel have huge numbers with Jimmy G. We know he can just facilitate the offense, get the job done, and he's a winner. So I'm intrigued to see, just real life football wise, now he's away from Kyle Shanahan. Can this guy lead a winning NFL franchise, or was it truly just Shanahan's that brilliant? Real life wise, that's a cool storyline. Otherwise, it just kind of keeps everything consistent here for Josh Jacobs and Davante Adams to remain the monsters that they were last year. I really do like this. Yeah. It obviously has consistency there with Josh McDaniels. But even when he's only had 2 real full seasons, Jimmy G, never been a top 20 fantasy quarterback in points per game. Always been solid, steady, but just that kind of 14 to 15 point guy. I don't think that we get much different than that. Carr was the quarterback 17 in this offense last year. I don't see that really changing. He's never had Jimmy G more than 4K yards. So it's not a huge exciting news for him fantasy-wise. More so, it keeps everybody else around him pretty stable.
I feel exactly the same way. Just on your Jimmy G analysis, like he's going to be the same fantasy guy he's always been, and I think the story is that those pieces will probably also remain the same fantasy guys that they were, which in Adams and Jacobs' case was right up at the top. So
exactly,
yeah, I agree. As far as Derek Carr goes, then we got the potential of a Mike Thomas rebound. Supposedly he's excited about this move.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, Mike Thomas is another guy. We talk about Aaron Rodgers. I talk about Mike Thomas, and it's like, how much of that stock do I want? How many times am I going to get lured back in to the Mike Thomas sweepstake? I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, when he set the NFL record for receptions the last time out there, it's so easy to know why we keep taking the bait, because the ceiling is
how many years has Josh Gordon fucked us over? Because he was really good in 2014.
He's making me some money in the XFL fantasy right now. I'm liking it. I'm back on the Josh Gordon trade. That's a story for another day here. Another degenerate tale.
We should just do a pod of just like really fun, ridiculous, just Aaron Rodgers, Josh Gordon, Mike Thomas. Just go through them one by one, ripping bong hits, and just really let it loose.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it'd be pretty big to rip through all that ourselves. But Derek Carr to the Saints, similar to what you were saying for Jimmy G. It's just, for him, do I really care? No, he's not somebody I'm going out of my way to draft. The Saints have been extremely run heavy since Drew Brees left, and I expect a very similar conservative approach, a good defense, ride that nice offensive line, bleed clock, and have Carr make the throws he needs to make. That's what Carr can do. And I do think this will elevate that offense that was playing with Andy Dalton all last year. This can't be considered a bad thing for the weapons there, and especially as we talked about the top Michael Thomas. Really, the key takeaway here is how excited he is about this. I believe he tweeted out, "Thank you, Jesus," with the praying hands as soon as this move happened. So he was really integral. Apparently, after the signing, you get a lot of these quotes coming out from ownership. Yeah, Mike Thomas continued to say, Derek Carr, he's the guy I want. And not that you as a franchise should ever be catering to a guy who hasn't played a full season since 2019, but 149 catches, 1,725-yard season, the wide receiver, one of the best seasons we've seen ever at an NFL level. If he's going to be excited and at least on the field, pick 100 beyond, which is where he's going. His ADP right now is 120. I mean, we're talking 10th to 12th round is where you're looking to get Mike Thomas here. As a wide receiver 4 or 5, he still does have like top 15 upside. He really genuinely does. It's Mike Thomas. We haven't seen it in 3 years. Is he going to hit that? Very unlikely. But at that price range, you look at the other receivers that are going in that range, and there's nobody even close to the resume, the acumen, the upside that a actually happy Michael Thomas can be. And I think Carr, he already said, the first thing that happened was Mike Thomas called me right as I got traded for. We talked for an hour. My wife saw me smiling on the phone and was just, what was going on there? And she was like, me and Mike Thomas are getting ready to go face the world. And they're building this narrative together already. And I'm a sucker for a good old narrative, a good old redemption story.
I am too. I'm laughing at it, but I'm going to fall into exactly the same trap that you are. There's nobody at that price, at that spot in the draft that I would probably take before I would jump on Mike Thomas. I would do it. He was on my damn team last year.
Exactly.
And he had 1 or 2 good games.
Yeah, like
and then he was out.
Week, right? Like, he showed everybody why. I was scrambling to try to go get him after week 1, like trying to trade for him. And thankfully, no one was budging.
They play like 2 or 3 games like the rest of the year. His foot got banged up or something. I don't even remember what his final stat line is. It's the thing. You get off the phone with Mike Thomas. Me and Mike Thomas are going to take on the world. And then you like meet him at a strip mall or something like that. And he's like, gets out of his car and he's like hobbling because his foot, like he hurt his foot on the way over.
Yeah, it's definitely a risk, but the risk is mitigated when you're talking about that price range. Is it a trap? Likely a trap, but it's a trap at that
cheap
price.
Trap, though.
But that's the thing. We're talking about early best ball. And we probably should have said this at the top. Some of these prices we're alluding to are on Underdog. You can use code RSJ if you download the app, get up to $100 matched. The link is also going to be added to the description and comments, ideally, as we go here. But yeah, a great place to continue drafting. This is where he's going. I'm just looking at where I'm doing these early best ball drafts. Who could I see rising 20, 30, 50 picks from here out? Let's say Mike Thomas and Derek Carr, the offseason workouts start coming in and the videos come in and Mike Thomas looks like
they're having breakfast together. They're having
He was
breakfast
on court
together.
last year. He walked into practice, scored 4 touchdowns on his first 5 catches. That's what Michael Thomas does. He is an elite player when he's out there. And if this signing right now for Michael Thomas makes him more likely to be on the field, then I'm going to take that risk. Now, if he just starts jumping into the 6th, 7th, price range, 6th, 7th round, I'm not going to do that. But right now, when I'm getting in round 10, sure, why not, as my wide receiver 4 or 5 on these best ball teams, take a very, very 3% chance that Mike Thomas becomes Mike Thomas. At that price range, it's worth it because it's record breaking when we have Mike Thomas on the field.
You're right. I mean, the thing is, I'm arguing against nobody because I agree with you completely. I'm more just rolling my eyes to the entire internet about Michael Thomas, his just the percentage of games he's played over the past 3 years.
My gut, I have a gut feeling this year, and I haven't really been back on the Mike Thomas train in a long time.
When was the last time somebody took 3 years off and then came back and was awesome?
Probably never.
It's probably never happened, right?
Never. No.
Right. So I don't know.
But
I don't know.
Again, when somebody breaks records when they're on the field, that's the guy I'll continue to bite back in on. If this doesn't get him going, I mean, this might be the final goodbye, but it's truly, I think, mentally with Michael Thomas. I think I don't want to play with Dalton. I don't want to play with Winston. I'm just going to be hurt all year until I get a quarterback I actually like. Is that a guy I really want to bet on? Not too heavily, but at a 110 price tag, sure.
Sure, why not? What kind of breakfast club would a Mike Thomas, Derek Carr breakfast club be? What do you think Derek Carr's eating for breakfast?
He's boring. He's porridge. Right. He's eating unflavored fucking porridge.
He's porridge.
Yeah.
What flavor? Unflavored.
I think it's unflavored. I think it's truly just cream of wheat, no sugar or brown, nothing, no flavoring for Derek Carr. He's boring as all hell.
That's fair. We said Matt Ryan was a bran flakes guy, right?
Yeah, that panned out.
Right. We were right. We were on it. Okay, cool. Moving forward, some Tua news, right?
Yeah, not a ton of news, but we've just had differing reports throughout the offseason on Tua. So it's nice to see a few, at least, good nuggets come out in the last few years. At the Combine, we had Chris Greer, the GM, saying, I can't lie and say no when asked if Tua's durability concerns were on his mind. And honest answer, how could they not be? And he said they are exploring quarterbacks, all the options at quarterback this offseason, but then reports started trickling out. Jeff Darlington of ESPN, they will not be pursuing Lamar Jackson. They think that Tua is the perfect quarterback for their system, and they want to see what they have while they have him under their rookie contract. And then they go out and sign Mike White as their backup. You know me, I've always actually been a pretty big Mike White guy when he plays, but this isn't going out and getting Jimmy G, who was recently linked to Mike McDaniels. It's not going out and drafting an early round quarterback. So to me, this is a pure backup move. And I love Mike White as backup, but this is a nice, safe Tua we can continue to draft as he is the starter. I believe this is an endorsing move for Tua. And last year when he was a top 6 quarterback in points per game. This offense looked borderline unstoppable at many points of the year. I don't know that Tua will stay healthy. Durability has been an enormous concern. I don't honestly expect him to. But then, hey, Mike White could probably walk in and have a field day in this offense, throwing to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle as well. So to me, this does stabilize Tua. He's right back into that top 10 quarterback ranking with the added injury risk, but at least we're not worried about him getting unseated before the season even begins.
Do you think there's any chance Tom Brady ends up being the quarterback of the Dolphins?
That obviously is big and buzzy. I don't think Brady is the type of guy to retire, unretire, retire again, and unretire again in back-to-back years. Maybe a year down the line, but I just don't think he's that type of diva. I love Brady too much.
He is like the biggest diva, except maybe Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers. Come on. What we've already talked about today.
Okay. Brady's a huge diva. I know you love the guy. Oh my God. Have you been paying attention for the last?
We're not going to make it through quarterbacks.
No, we're not. This is all we're doing. All right, let's go. Daniel Jones news.
Yeah, Daniel Jones and Geno Smith, I lumped back together because it's big news. Both of them getting paid, and good for them, honestly.
No, look at that. Look at Geno Smith with the big contract.
Comeback player of the year, baby. It's great to see. And I'm pumped for him. And he had an awesome year. In fact, this shocked me. I was looking up the deep passing stats to kind of get a sense for Derek Carr. We didn't even really talk about with Derek Carr.
Right.
It's not great news for Olave. He's not a good deep passer. So I'm just going to quickly pull that banner up just so we can readdress the last lingering point. I think it's great news for Michael Thomas. I think Slant Boy will have his guy that likes to pepper the short intermediate game. But Derek Carr, He actually took the 4th most deep attempts last year and was like bottom 10 in deep yardage and touchdown. He just was not good stats-wise, very inefficient. He was actually the quarterback 37 in deep passer rating, according to PFF, below like Sam Ehlinger. And I mean, just some historically bad.
Sam Ehlinger. Oh, that takes me back.
Sam Ehlinger was one that was ahead of him. I mean, who else was out there? Brian Hoyer, Bailey Zappi, Sam Darnold, all had better deep passer ratings than Derek Carr last year. So it might have been an off year. He has had some good years slinging it deep to Crabtree and different players. So maybe it's just the system and the offense. We will find out, but I don't consider this a great move. Everyone, Olave to the moon now. I don't know that Carr's that much of an upgrade to Andy Dalton. And he's certainly not a great deep passer. I think it does help Michael Thomas, especially in the motivation factor. But I don't know that this is a huge deal for Chris Olave. In fact, it could be a negative. I can't really be negative. Andy Dalton's, it's going to be better than Dalton. But I'm not here sitting saying Olave to the moon like a lot of people. But let's go back to the other news we were just alluding to. Both Daniel Jones and Geno Smith getting paid and back to where they actually both had top 10 fantasy seasons. And I brought up that deep passing and was shocked to see Geno Smith was the number 1 ranked quarterback on deep passing attempts. He had the most deep passing touchdowns at 14 last year. It was like as if Russell Wilson was never gone. He continued to connect with Lockett on some insane chemistry throws. It was just probably the most shocking NFL.
I mean, you would agree 100% that Geno Smith was much better than Russell Wilson last year.
For last year? Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, like last year, if you saw these two guys, you would be like, I don't want anything to do with this guy. And Geno Smith seems like really good.
We're talking about fleece trades. I mean, that was just maybe the worst trade of all time on the Broncos' part.
I mean, I thought it was a bad trade by the Broncos when it happened. I wasn't prepared for actually how terrible it was going to be.
Yeah. I mean, Geno, and on the other end, Geno had a legitimately very, very good year. Like I was saying, the number 1 deep passer, completed nearly 50% of his 20-plus yard throws, sustained Lockett, sustained DK. And that's a big takeaway here is both of those guys right back into that steady quarterback situation they had last year that made them both top 15. So I really love, especially the value on Lockett, who's falling around 5 or 6 right now. You still have to go round, late second, early third for DK. Last time we saw him on the field, he was lighting up the playoffs, though. So I still think he's worth it with this quarterback, but I especially love Lockett in that round 5-6 range. And I love Geno. He's the quarterback 5 last year. He was top 12 in 53% of his game, top 24, 94%. He only had 1 dud on the year. He was really, really solid. So, yeah, maybe they draft a developmental rookie to kind of learn under him. But this was a 3-year contract with a lot of money tied to it. So I expect Geno to be right in that same situation that made him top 5 QB last year. And then Danny Jones, similar situation, getting 40 mil, 4-year, $160 million contract. So insane numbers there. He was the quarterback 9 last year, and he had 30-plus fantasy points 3 separate times, so big ceiling. And then from week 11 on, that's when the offense really seemed to start finding itself. Danny Jones starts to run. He was the quarterback 4 in points per game from week 11 on. If you just kind of think of that, them and then through their playoff run, Daniel Jones just looked like a different guy for that second half of the year. And I mean, that's probably what they're trying to build here with that consistency. Saquon's back as well. Ideally, they beef up the line even further and get him Daniel Jones. We said it with Justin Fields. He got his number 1 receiver. Couldn't they go get out and get DeAndre Hopkins? I guess they just went and got Darren Waller. So that's a really, really good tight end weapon. Now, can they get one more big splash receiver signing to pair with that? And Daniel Jones could have that top 6 ceiling that he flashed ultimately. He was a top 12 quarterback in all but one of his last 7 games. I mean, he was really, really solid. So I love this move for both these guys, returning where we saw some great success last year with ideally only improved situations. So big stuff for those guys.
Agree. All right, we're going to round out quarterbacks. We're only 35 minutes in.
And quarterbacks was the biggest position.
I know, but I know us too.
Yeah.
49ers situation. Obviously, Trey is expected for OTAs, and Brock Purdy in doubt for week 1. Where do you stand on Trey Lance right now, just in a vacuum? What do you think? Honestly?
It's a tricky situation. So if Brock Purdy was healthy right now, I probably would want nothing to do with Trey Lance in any fantasy drafts right now and down the road. I think the team would commit to Brock Purdy. The way George Kittle glowed and raved about him and said, this is our quarterback, the team rallied around him. There's all those reports of how he was lighting up the first team defense, and they were like, please, dude, slow down. He's like, no, I'm here to win. I'm here to show my worth. And he continued to light up one of the best defenses in the league during practice to the point the coaches had to like tell him to turn it down. I love everything about Purdy. If I am building that franchise, I'm trying to see what I can get for Trey Lance. But Purdy did have that elbow surgery, Tommy John, which is very weird football. You never really know exactly how someone's going to rebound from that. And already they're saying week 1's in doubt. They're thinking early September is when he can really start to ramp it up and be full go. So that's risky. It opened the door for Trey Lance to win this team back. And obviously the franchise investing so much to trade up and go get him. It gives them the excuse to then let Trey Lance win this job. I think they want him to come in, light it up, look great, be the guy they gave up everything to move to 3 and more. And then if he is that guy, I mean, the Konami upside, every single year we talk about him being a cheat code, and he got hurt in week 1 after a complete monsoon. So that was completely washed. He barely played as a rookie and had some glimpses, but also some pretty gross glimpses too. So it's really hard. I don't like what I've seen from Trey Lance. I don't know.
No, I don't either. I don't. I think they want him to come in, look respectable so they can flip him. I mean,
even better. Right. Exactly.
Maybe that's what they really
has 3 to 4 really good games and they flip him. That would probably be, as long as Purdy's looking good, maybe that's the smart play here. But he certainly at least has the chance now, Trey Lance, to win this job. And any quarterback under Kyle Shanahan's going to be a viable fantasy threat, and especially one that has Justin Fields' level of rushing potential here, Konami upside. So I am willing to take some shots on Trey Lance once again. In these early best ball drafts on Underdog, I'm not biting though, because he's right now going 3 rounds ahead of Geno Smith, the quarterback 5 last year.
Yeah, no, don't touch that.
Exactly. We don't even know Trey Lance will be starting this year. So yes, does he have a higher ceiling than Geno Smith? Yes, absolutely. But should he be going 3-4 rounds ahead of Geno Smith, ahead of Daniel Jones right now on a complete hypothetical? No, not for me at least, not at this price range. So I'm kind of out on Trey Lance, at least at his current underdog price. But in season long, I imagine where people aren't taking such big swings for the moon and upside chases, if he's like a last round guy, absolutely. Like there is still a very real top 6 ceiling in a Kyle Shanahan offense with that rushing ability. And now he has the shot to at least realize that potential. I would not even thought about him if Brock Purdy was healthy right now, but that does open the door for him to potentially resurrect his career or at least get traded somewhere and be a starter.
Do you think that it is going to be a massive priority for any of these teams in the offseason to be scheming specifically about, I mean, it sounds like an obvious question, but it seems like as things have gotten bigger in the NFL, ways to produce yardage, ways to produce points. Right now I'm talking about running quarterbacks. Can you stop it? Or if you're a runner, are you going to be able to get 50, 60 yards a week as a quarterback just because? Like, you know what I mean?
Interesting. How do you defend it well? It's tricky. It really depends on the weapons around you. And that's why I'm so excited for Justin Fields, where you can't just completely stack the box and just defend him and have someone spying him, because now you have DJ Moore, insane deep threat, now stretching your defense out vertically. So it really depends on the weapons and how many lanes. But you look at Josh Allen, you have Diggs and Gabe Davis on those 2 sides, and teams just can't stop that. Like when he is healthy and running down your throat, it's so hard to be able to play man up on these great receivers and then spy the quarterback too. It really is. I mean, that's probably going to be the new mold of like what
that's the NFL, right? That's the NFL moving forward, right?
The only rub to that would be how healthy do they say? Is there a shorter shelf life to these guys? You got a guy like Josh Allen who's a tank and just kind of knows when to take the hit and when to get out of bounds. Okay. But like, I think Jalen Hurts will be a really good tail, because I think he's going to be a Super Bowl winning quarterback as long as he stays healthy. But if we see him break down anywhere early in his career, it's tricky, because they're certainly taking more hits. Their body's on the line more. That's the risk there with the mobile quarterbacks. So I don't know.
All right. Yeah. I know that was kind of just out there. I've just been thinking about
it's really interesting.
I've been thinking about it. It's kind of like I'm a big basketball fan. It's kind of like the 3-pointer in the NBA, where it's just completely changed the game. And now it just seems like running quarterback. I guess your ideal version of that is a Josh Allen or maybe even a Mahomes, who can run if he has to, but obviously still has the arm and a couple other intangibles, stuff like that. But it seems like straight up just pocket passers. I don't know. I mean, we got some of them, but and some of them are
Daniel
really good.
Jones, like he runs plenty.
No, he's a runner. I think of him as a running quarterback. He's not a pocket passer.
You can extend plays. You can gain it with your legs. The first downs. I mean,
Trevor Lawrence likes to run.
I love Trevor. I mean, we're going to talk about him shortly, but yes, he's going to be this year's Jalen Hurts. I mean, obviously Justin Fields already kind of is, But Trevor Lawrence is the one that you can actually get in round 6, 7. That's going to be a top 3, monster. We'll talk about him shortly.
All right, let's see if we can get through running backs before I got to take off.
Awesome. So yeah, moving on to running backs, guys, that thumbs up button, whether you're here with the replay, whether you're here with us live, it does truly help us continue to go. It does look like we had some questions and comments coming in. Love to see it. I know Truth's got to get out of here, but I'll be more than happy. I got a snow day at this point, so I'm here the rest of the day. So whatever questions you have, whether it's your dynasty team, whether you got love advice you need, let the Wolf know. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have as we continue to mow. Quarterbacks was definitely the most loaded position in this early wave of free agency. We're going to definitely have another show with much more receiver, running back, all those.
Yeah, and I'll come back.
A lot of interesting. Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about. I said I'll come back when we do the next show.
All right. Perfect.
All right. Yeah, like snow day for you is a vacation. For me, it's actually more work than a normal day. All right. Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, all franchise tagged. Would you call these fantasy wins, fantasy losses? How do you see these shaking out?
I think it's a huge win for Josh Jacobs. He was the running back 3 in this offense last year. He was finally, and what led to this breakout, he was finally used the right way. He came into the NFL lauded for his receiving skills, his potential to be a 3-down back, and yet the Raiders continue to stubbornly use him as a only 2-down guy, never really turned the keys over. And then finally we see it happen. 83.7% opportunity share, was number 1 in the league. 306.1 weighted opportunities, was number 3 in the NFL. He led the NFL in rushing yards, 1,653 yards. He was a touchdown beast. I mean, multiple 30-plus spike games. 19.3 points per game, was 3rd for the position when he was finally used well. And now you got him on that 1 year. I kind of do love franchise tag running backs because they haven't committed the entire bag where they now might want to ease their stud and not fully ride him till the wheels fall off. No, this is like a 1 year, let's ride you one more time while we have you type of situation. Right. So I think everything's in place for Josh Jacobs to continue to crush it, especially now that Jimmy G, big check down guy, is there to also pepper him with targets. So I think that is huge news. Love Josh Jacobs. He's going at the end of round 2 right now on underdog drafts. Yeah. He should be a first rounder.
Where is he on your big board right now?
I would have him at probably 10, 11, like right in that range.
Okay.
Maybe even higher, honestly, the more I think about it. But
so yes. you got your kind of big 3 running backs, then you got a string of receivers, maybe Kelsey, and then you go Jacobs.
Exactly right. And honestly, he might belong with those big 3 running backs. Last year, he certainly did.
Right.
If unbelievable. Then you got Saquon Barkley, the running back 6 last year. Very, very similar story here. Great opportunity share with this Brian Daboll offense. 80.1% was number 3. 79.9% of the snaps, number 2 in the league. And snaps end up being so huge for running backs because if you're on the field a lot, you're touching the ball a lot, and especially on those passing downs, and that's what Barkley does so well. It's no surprise that both of these guys, Jacobs and Barkley, were top 6 running backs because of how much receiving usage, both of those guys seeing over 50 receptions on the year. Unbelievable for Barkley to also be back on an offense that I think will continue to ascend just on continuity alone. But now, again, Darren Waller has been added to this. Maybe Hopkins goes there. Maybe another receiver signing as they continue to load up and surround Daniel Jones, their new franchise quarterback, with weapons. So even if nothing changed, you're looking at probably the running back 6 again this year in Barkley, but in a better offense with more touchdown opportunities. You saw it as, again, that week 11-ish range, that entire offense started to open up, and Barkley really had that juice yet again. You had 27.9, 23.0, 27.3. 3 of his last 4 games were insane. He started out the year really hot, then kind of fizzled in a little bit in the middle, and then the offense really started to take off at that week 12, 11 point, and that's when Barkley started to get it going again. So I think this is great news for him, great news for Jacobs. I don't love it for Pollard. Maybe it's just the selfish part of me. He was the running back 7, so again, right behind Barkley, another top 10 guy last year, walking into a situation that should ideally be better for him, and that's because I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this because Kellen Moore is gone, their offense coordinator. He's going to the Chargers. I think it's a huge move for the Chargers. We'll talk about that another day. I love Justin Herbert with Kellen Moore. That's going to be awesome. But the reason they let Kellen Moore go is because they wanted to run the ball more. Mike McCarthy saying, I just want to run the damn ball. I'm not worried about lighting up the scoreboard. I don't want to be the number 1 scoring offense in the league. I want to be the number 1 running. Good. Yeah, good for you. And then they bring in
That's a hot take. I'd really rather not score too many points.
Exactly. Yeah, fired your offensive coordinator for doing what he's meant to do at a really, really good rate. It makes sense. I don't get it. But they hired Brian Schottenheimer, who anybody knows just a complete and utter sickening coach. Loves to run he's the one that wouldn't let Russ cook for so long there in Seattle, but he is good at one thing, and it is crafting really good run games. So I do think the Cowboys are going to go out there and try to run the damn ball. Zeke looked another full year older. There's still rumblings he could be cut. Not surprising, according to ESPN, if they see Ezekiel Elliott get cut. He's certainly going to have to take a pay cut if he's going to remain with the team. So Pollard could also be, especially if Zeke is gone next year, in a better situation with he already was the running back 7, could be in an even better situation next year should Zeke be gone in a more run-heavy centric team here. So I think this is great for all three of these guys. If one makes me a little more worried, it is Pollard, because Zeke could be lingering, and I think the Cowboys could take a pretty big step back after losing Kellen Moore as an offense as a whole. But I do love this for all three of these guys, staying where they are on 1-year prove-it deals before they get paid and then kind of get their workloads managed more. I think this is big news for all of them.
I'm not making any commentary about the other 2 guys on this list when I say this, but just as a complete aside, Tony Pollard's really good.
I fucking love Pollard. Yes. I was just hoping to go to like the Chiefs, like the pipe dreams.
Sure.
Where
you always want anybody who's like really good. You're like, oh, I hope he goes to the Chiefs.
Go to the Chiefs, the Bills. Yeah.
By the way, Tunes just put on comments that Rashad Penny went to the Eagles.
To the Eagles, yeah. And Sanders probably hasn't been re-signed yet either, huh?
Right. So
we'll have some fodder. Like, I probably won't be able to dive into Penny and Waller with any type of, just in terms of like,
we'll do this again. We'll do it again.
We'll definitely be lighting it up as these other news stories break.
All right, let's move on. Next banner, we got some combine stuff going on. Travis Etienne and DeAndre Swift are going to face competition, supposedly.
Yeah,
that word says competition, but I'm assuming you meant competition.
Competition, yes, competition. Great banner, good typing there. But yeah, Travis Etienne, he's the one I'm certainly less worried about, because with Doug Peterson saying you got to have 2 to 3 guys and a firm yes when added about asking, is he going to add to the running back room? So that makes sense, though. He still made sure to laud. The biggest thing for me was I loved his toughness, his physicality. He's not a big guy, but he's very, very physical, elusive, has good speed. He's just going to get better and better as a runner. So Doug Peterson made sure to praise and praise and praise, and then just say, we're going to have to add backs. I mean, that's just kind of logical, common sense. I'm not overly worried about Etienne, who over his final 8 full games was 22 points in 3 of them, 12 points in 5 of them, looked like a really nice young runner who has not yet had his receiving ceiling, which is why he was drafted in the first place, but hasn't been tapped into. So I really, really hope that continues to be expanded upon, because there's a level to Etienne's game we just haven't seen yet. But I loved what I saw last year. Yes, he's going to have a little bit more competition. That's how Peterson does things, but still, I'm not overly concerned. I am definitely a little bit more worried about DeAndre Swift, who I always loved the player, always have loved the talent, but he is a soft little bitch. He always gets hurt, and it's you can tell the team is sick of it. Campbell, and I love Dan Campbell. He's a very talented player. He's one of those guys you can take to the house anywhere on the field. We thought we had a recipe going into the year, but it didn't work out because he got a little bit banged up. And he just doesn't really hold punches. Like, Jamal Williams is who he wants, and Jamal Williams is a free agent. So that's why Jamal Williams leaves. Could Swift go to the moon? They're definitely going to add somebody else, another big back, because that's just not what Swift does best. And maybe this will be a blessing in disguise for him when they're not riding him to complete obliteration and he gets hurt every single time. Because now Campbell said, we got to find ways to keep him on the field. He's too talented to not have out there. So maybe if we have to limit him, all that. So I do expect a limited role for Swift, and maybe that ends up being the best thing for him. But everyone that continues to rank him as this, third-round guy that has all the upside in the world, it's going to be capped. As talented as he is, as much of a playmaker as he is, I do not think Swift will ever be treated like a workhorse, nor should he at this point.
No, he should. That's not his bag. No.
Yes.
All right, let's move on. Javonte Williams, is he healthy? Is he not healthy? Because if he comes back, it's an A+ situation. In theory, you got Sean Payton in. We like the line. Are you a Broncos believer now because of Peyton? Because, man, I don't know. I'm going to – look, you know how I was for years and years and years with the Jets, with the Giants, the Jags. I was like, you're going to have to prove it to me before I'm going to believe it with you. Yeah. That's how I feel about the Broncos. I didn't think the Broncos were going to be good last year. I picked them dead last in the AFC West at the beginning of the year. There was a lot of people that really, really liked the Broncos. I didn't see it, and they were even worse than I thought they would be. Do you think Peyton is going to turn this around? Like, look at this division. Do you think that the Broncos are going to finish better than last in this division? this year?
I think they'll be better than the Raiders. I think
You think so? Okay.
I do.
Jimmy G's a winner. I don't know.
I don't think they're going to win this division anytime soon. And I don't know what to believe with Russell Wilson. I do think this. If anyone's going to revive him, it is Sean Payton. I love Sean Payton as a coach. It's an offensive mind. If anybody's going to know how to revive this quarterback, it is Sean Payton, who has gushed and gushed and gushed about Russ since arriving there, said he's always wanted to work with him. He's so pumped. What else is he going to say? I understand that too. But if anyone's going to do it, it's him. I also just hate Russell Wilson. All the things you learn.
Oh, I hate him so much.
He is such a tool bag. It's more than
Who
just.
Who do you hate more, him or Rodgers? Who do you hate more? It's the way
him or Rodgers? Like on the off days, make everyone come in for these weird meetings and like his teammates. It's one thing if you do that and your teammates love you, but none of them really liked him.
Nope.
He sucks. I don't like him. I don't know that he's actually going to get this back on track. Wherever he's been, his teammates have always crapped on him. Marshawn Lynch and Richard Seymour. Not Richard Seymour. Richard Sherman. They all just don't like this guy. So I don't know that he's going to be saved. I don't think he will, to be honest. But it can't be worse than last year as well. And so when I look at this, I look at a guy like Javonte Williams, who I do love. Every time the guy touches the rock, I'm absolutely in love with this player. If he's healthy, he's going to be a top 6 running back. There's no doubt about that, but there is doubts about when he's going to be healthy, if it's going to be at all fully this year. Right now, we've gotten 2 conflicting reports. Their offensive coordinator, the general manager, saying, I think he's on track. I don't want to put a date on it, but he's there jogging. He's working his butt off. He's rehabbing. I would anticipate he's out there for the start of the year. Okay, nice. But then we also have ESPN saying because of the multiple knee ligaments, it could keep him out well into 2023. So really conflicting reports coming out. Some people saying it's close to that J.K. Dobbins going to take a full year and a half or so to see him get going. And that's honestly probably what I expect. But if and when he's ready to go, we just seen no team attack their offensive line like the Broncos have, going out big and getting McGlinchey at tackle, the best tackle of this class, then going and getting Powers, the best guard of this class. I mean, they're doing everything. There's going to be no excuse other than Russell Wilson just genuinely does suck, and that could be the case, but everything else is in place. The play caller in Peyton, the offensive line that wasn't bad anyways, is now even more beefed up. And then for Javonte Williams himself, if he is healthy, when he's healthy, no one uses the running back better than Sean Payton. His entire 15 years as the play caller, the Saints were number 1 in backfield points for over half of those years, and certainly in terms of total points across that 15-year span, they were by far the number 1 team in backfield points for fantasy-wise because he peppers the running backs so much. His last 9 years, I could only find 9 years. I probably would have gone back to all 15 of them, but only 9 years were available where I was looking up this data. But the Saints under Sean Payton ranked 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 2nd, 1st, 3rd, 5th, 3rd, 4th in 9 straight years of running back. So that's 5. That's top 5 running back targets.
That's legit. I mean, that's real.
I would bet a lot of money that of those 15 years coaching, 12 of them were top 5 at least, because we know Drew Brees loved to check it down for all those years. Maybe all 15 of them were top 5 for Sean Payton in terms of running back targets. So when Williams comes back, a very capable receiver, got tons of plus pass protection and route running. He can do it all. So if and when he comes back, I mean, this is like a bigger Alvin Kamara potential player. I would love Javonte Williams, but it might be a year down the road. It might not be this year that we fully see this. So dynasty-wise, I'm in. I'm buying this. I want to get Javonte on my teams. Unless we see him really zipping around the field and looking fully healthy, I probably will be out this year. But if and when he's healthy, like you said, A-plus situation between the line getting improved, and especially with Sean Payton and all the receiving usage he has for his backs, this is going to be a great situation once Javonte is finally healthy.
All right, there's been a lot of hype surrounding James Cook, mostly from the GM. But to me, this seems just like a wait and see type thing at this point. I mean, we don't quite know how this stuff's going to shake out. Obviously, the talent's there. The situation could be really good. It could be good, or it could be really, really, really good. Depending on what happens. And so I'm kind of sitting on this one for a little while.
So we got Singletary as a free agent. We've been hinting at that all year. As Cook, a great person to stash and keeper leagues. Yeah. You get him for real cheap and then hold on to him all year and hope he's the featured back of this insane offense by the end of the year. Now, he only had 4 games last year with 10 or more carries. He averaged over 12 fantasy points per game in there. That's nothing to sneeze at. That would have been a top 15 running back. In 2 of those games, he scored 16 PPR points. He had 89 carries total and 5.7 yards per clip. Was pretty damn nice. James Cook, he looked like his brother. Good vision, good patience. He's a player. So if they actually decide to turn the keys over to him, I really do think James Cook would thrive. It's that good of an offense that you don't need to be anything overly special. Devin Singletary was a top 5 running back for your entire fantasy playoffs just 2 years ago, and Singletary's not a great player.
No,
so I really
not.
do like James Cook. I like whoever is operating this backfield. So we do have to wait and see. Does David Montgomery, Leonard Fournette? There's tons of free agents out there right now that could easily come and muddy this up. But if Cook does somehow emerge with very minimal additions there, I love him. I love the player. I love the offense. He could be a no-brainer steal next year. We just got to wait and see what happens.
Agree completely. Joe Mixon news. Could he be cut? And if so, obviously there's a huge, we call them value holes here to fill. Since he's the real deal, they've proven that they are not short on weapons. Burrow is a legit franchise guy. They got maybe, you think they're the best 1-2 punch of receivers in football?
Oh, yeah, that's absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I think they are too. I mean, I really, really like the Eagles guys too, but I agree.
That's true. They're close.
I like the Bengals guys more though.
I do.
Running back, Cincy, workhorse running back potentially, or even like a 2.5 down out of 4 running back. That's a big spot for fantasy. Do you think Mixon's going to get cut?
He really could. And nobody's really had a worse offseason right now than Joe Mixon. I mean, he ultimately.
I'm trying to decide if I think that's true.
I guess you could probably come up with some people, but I mean, first he gets aggravated menacing charges in Cincinnati. They get dropped, but apparently pulled a gun on a woman.
But still, he menaced.
He menaced, and this is a guy with a past of menacing for sure too. So that was one thing, and then a few weeks later, he's part of a crime scene at an alleged shooting at his neighborhood. Yep. So he just continues to have his nose popping up, even if he doesn't officially get charged with anything. In these wrong spots, he's due for a ton of money, $7.3 million against the cap right now. And we just saw Samaje Perine, who's a free agent himself, but in the 3 starts he made, 30.2 fantasy points, 19.3 fantasy points, and 21.5. Running back 2, 10, and 3 in his 3 starts this year. He walked right in. It was as if nobody was out because Perine was honestly a better receiver than Mixon ever has been. So I wouldn't be shocked at all to see them cut Mixon, sign Samaje Perine on this cheap, and have Perine be a top 15 potential running back. Whoever the starter is, whether it's a new rookie, whether it is Joe Mixon, or whether it's Samaje and they re-sign him for cheap, somebody here is going to be a top 12 running back because it's that good of an offense. They'd like to use their backs in the passing game. It's a great spot. Now, if it's Mixon, he's going right now at pick 70 or so on Underdog because of all these offseason news, because of the fact he could get cut and who knows where he'd end up there. But I don't mind taking a stab at Mixon at that price here too, because what if Perine is gone? What if he gets plucked away? The guy that was nibbling his cheese as a receiver, and now you got Mixon back into the 3rd down, 3 down, complete horse roll that last year made him just 2 seasons ago was a top 5 running back in that role. So I like taking a stab at Mixon at his price at 70, but there is a ton of risk right now associated with him, and just in general, normal drafts. He's probably a guy going around pick 30 or so. Just a little too much risk for me. We'll see how this all shakes out.
Too much risk for me at 30, no doubt. But I'll say this, at 70, he's worth taking a stab at, even if he does get cut, because he's going to get picked up somewhere else, probably start for whoever he gets picked up for. Still a good player. So, I mean, if I saw him at 70, I'd take him. But I agree, at 30, I'm not touching him.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Raheem Mostert, back to the Dolphins. Supposedly they have interest in Dalvin Cook. Well, sure. Well, who wouldn't have interest in Dalvin Cook? Also, there's some question marks surrounding Jeff Wilson. Is he going to be back? You know us. We love Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, if Jeff Wilson's back, he's the guy I'll be going after. They have the best running back in the league, of course. But Mostert himself had some really, really solid spurts there this season, going for a career-high 891 yards as well as 202 receiving yards. He's 30, so he's getting up there in age, but he does have light tread on his tires. McDaniels obviously had that success with Mostert, the 49ers scheme, comes right in after a couple injury-ravaged seasons and has nearly a full season last year and looks really, really solid. And I do think this is a franchise that knows not to overinvest in the running back position. That's why I'm kind of surprised Dalvin Cook is getting floated out there. Maybe they're just trying to do their due diligence and see if they can get Cook on the cheap because he is a great zone runner. This is a great zone scheme. But as of right now, Mostert's in a position to be a top 20 running back like he was as the starter throughout most of last year. Wilson could end up there. They might, again, trade for Dalvin Cook. Maybe they draft a really exciting rookie. But right now, Mostert's looking at a good potential value, and he's going pick 150, 160 right now. in these underdog drafts. Even if he ends up being the number 2 guy, he does have that getaway burst that would make him a nice option, even as the number 2 guy. And then if he somehow ends up as the number 1 guy, well, now you got yourself an absolute steal. So to me, there's really no risk with drafting Raheem Mostert right now at his price. I'm going back to the well on Jeff Wilson, though, too, because he keeps saying, I'd love to be back. I love the organization. And he was a top 12 running back once he got over there. He was an absolute monster.
He's good.
Jeff Wilson there. So I'm in on whoever they're running back. It's similar to the Bengals. This is a really, really just insane offense, good zone scheme that likes to pass to the backs as well. So whoever is the starter there is going to have some value. It might be Mostert, and right now at his price, I'll dive in all day.
All right. This is probably going to be my last banner I'm going to be able to stay for. We're going to finish out running backs here. I guess the Wolf will finish up wide receivers, tight ends. But I would love to get on again sometime and talk about this. This is kind of scratching my fantasy itch a little bit here.
Oh, hell yeah. We'll get drafted, baby.
I know. Yeah. Let's do a big best ball this week.
Yeah.
Maybe. I'm down.
Absolutely.
I got some new stuff too. So I'm just saying.
Test it out.
Quick dynasty stash. Jerome Ford. I'm not too knowledgeable on him. Explain why he's a good dynasty stash.
Yeah. So as of right now, Kareem Hunt and Dearness Johnson, the number 2 and 3 backs for the Browns, they're both free agents. Neither of them have been brought back yet. And Kevin Stefanski came out and said, we're very encouraged by Jerome Ford. He's very capable of being our number 2 runner. This is a great blocking scheme. It's similar, that zone scheme that I always love. It's been very, very productive ever since Stefanski arrived there. The number 2 backs have always been invaluable. Chubb, of course, number 1, monster, maybe the best pure runner in the NFL. But Hunt has always seen about 150 to 250 carries behind Nick Chubb. And then you got, when he goes down, Dearness Johnson comes in and just rips it up. So that it's a great scheme. And Jerome Ford himself, last year in the preseason, had like a monster, like 120-yard, 3-touchdown day. It's the preseason. I get it. But he's flashed the few times he's been on the field. He has looked really solid. So this is more so for the dynasty leaguers out there. He's out there in over 60% of sleeper leagues. Go scoop him. There's a chance he doesn't end up being the number 2 guy. But as of right now, he is. And I like the player. I really do. I liked him coming in. He's a great fit for the scheme. So if something ever happened to Chubb too, and he is the number 1 guy, he could be a 15 to 20. He's no worse than Dearness Johnson, who was a bona fide number 1 running back.
We like Dearness Johnson
just a few years ago.
We like Dearness Johnson.
I love Dearness Johnson. I mean, I do. I don't mean no shade to him. I love the way he plays. But Ford has a better athletic profile and then similar zone scheme skills. So I like Ford. I think he could be a player. And so just a guy to keep on your dynasty radar at the moment.
All right. That's good. Thanks for informing me on that. I got to take off. So Wolfpack, thanks for tuning in on my end. You're probably going to get a little more Wolf after I take off, but we'll be in touch soon. And Wolf, it was good to catch up.
Always good catching up, True. Thanks again for being here, my man.
All right, buddy.
Cheers. All right, Wolfpack, we will wrap up with some receivers. Definitely, as I said at the top, the quarterbacks dominated the news in this early free agency span. And then we had some running back notes with those franchisees. There have not been a ton of receiver notes to come out, but a few important ones to cover so far. So let us dive into those as we do. Again, that thumbs up button would be so greatly appreciated, Wolfpack, if you haven't hit it already. And we keep alluding to these player prices. It's on Underdog, Best Ball Fantasy. Download the app, use code RSJ. You get up to $100 free, up to $100 matched. No brainer. Go do that now. It is so fun to play on there. I've been hitting the mean streets already throughout this offseason. The prices are great right now. Good time to capitalize before all these values swing and go crazy after the NFL draft. But let's talk about some wide receivers. The biggest news so far at the position is that Keenan Allen is expected to return to the Chargers. There was lots of rumblings early on that he might get cut, be a cap casualty. At the Combine, Tom Telesco, the GM, shutting those down completely. Keenan Allen isn't going anywhere, he says, and then he restructures Allen, his contract, alongside Mike Williams to ensure he is going nowhere. That's huge news. I know he had a down year. He was hurt, missed 7 games, and now everyone, he's old, he's hurt, he's never going to make it through a full season anymore. I mean, entering last year, this guy was the model of consistency. He played 78 out of 81 games. He had been a top 12 fantasy receiver in 5 straight seasons, 100-plus receptions in 4 of those 5, 1,100 yards in 4 of those 5. If last year's injury was fluky, which I think it was, given that, again, 78 of his last 81 games for Keenan Allen, then we got ourselves a top 12 receiver that you're right now an Underdog getting in round 5. I absolutely love Keenan Allen at his 56 ADP. I've taken him at that round 4 turn, 48-ish range. I love him. I think he has easily top 12 upside, given that when he actually was on the field last year, played the final 8 games, he averaged 20.9 PPR points per game. Keenan Allen did last year. Only Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp had more than 20 PPR points per game last year. So Keenan Allen, I am still in love with. I think he is one of the biggest steals of the draft now that we know he's not leaving this offense. That, as I keep saying, Kellen Moore is going to be there. This offense has already been great. I think this offense is going to go to extreme new heights in 2023 under Kellen Moore's direction, with Justin Herbert slinging that thing around, lighting up the scoreboard. I think Keenan Allen's a huge part of that and one of the biggest steals of fantasy drafts on Best Ball right now. Another huge value is Calvin Ridley. He's reinstated. He has seemingly learned from his mistakes, wrote a huge sorry to the NFL and recognizing how dumb it was, what he was doing. I respect it. And I respect even more Calvin Ridley's game. Last time he was on the field, top 10 wide receiver. Fantasy-wise, just eyeball test-wise, the guy is silky smooth. Every layer of the field gets it done. I'm a huge fan of Calvin Ridley, and I'm a big fan of this Jags team as a whole. I think Doug Peterson's doing a phenomenal job with them. Trevor Lawrence really seemed to turn that corner last year. I think he's going to be that bona fide can't-miss prospect everybody was alluding to. Yeah, Urban Meyer made us question that just a little bit. I think it's very, very clear at this point that this guy, Trevor Lawrence, is going to be a stud, and Calvin Ridley is going to be his alpha. I mean, he is a monster. Last time we saw him out, like I said, top 6 wide receiver for the Falcons. He's already calling for a 1,400-plus yard year with Trevor Lawrence. So big fan, Calvin Ridley. It does hurt, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk a little bit, who's going to still be a great slot weapon. But ultimately, there's only so many mouths to feed here. And I think Calvin Ridley is going to be the biggest slice by a lot. Him versus Keenan Allen is an interesting debate. I typically side with Ridley just for the talent, the sending offense. I'm going to go Ridley there. Big fan of him returning. Jakobi Meyers getting paid $33 million on 3-year contract, going to the Raiders, reuniting with Josh McDaniels to dominate that slot. It's what Jakobi Meyers is great at, and that's how he's going to be used. So this, to me, signals the death of Hunter Renfrow. We're all in on him last year. Too bad to see him really crumble at the opportunity. He got hurt and just never really rebounded from there. But with Darren Waller now getting moved apparently today, thank you again, Tunes, breaking that as we broke and went live here. Meyers has a very real path to 130, 140 targets, even with Devontae Adams, even with Josh Jacobs there. That type of money is no joke, 33 mil over 3 years. So I do think we're going to get high volume. It's just similar to what Meyers was with New England, though. 67 catches, 803 yards. Did have 6 touchdowns last year. It was nice to see that spike. I think that's about his ceiling, though. When you're playing alongside Adams, there's just only going to be so much for you to do. But right after the cat, I mean, this guy is good, and we know McDaniels is going to know how to use him. Chiefs wide receivers at the combine, Andy Reid saying Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore will have bigger roles. I mean, pretty obvious statement. Couldn't be much less than what they did last year, given that Toney only had 17 targets in his 7 games, barely did much, but we did see that game-breaking potential, that 65-yard punt return in the Super Bowl. Every time he touched the ball, electric factory, the crowd holds their breath, given what he was doing with it in his hands. And the report comes out from, who's this? Palmer over at ESPN, that Toney is expected, according to the Chiefs internally, they believe he is their wide receiver 1 entering the year. So Kelsey, Toney, MVS, ideally getting Juju back in Sky Moore, but they really believe that Toney can bring his game to the next level. Now, can he or not? We will see. He only has 55 catches, 591 yards, and 2 touchdowns through 19 games. That doesn't even scream you a number 3 wide receiver at this point. But I really do like Toney. I'm a sucker for the talent. I've bought into it a few times, and we have seen him shoulder passing games as a rookie. Played 50% of New York Giants snaps in 7 games as a rookie. He had a target share of 20.7% in those games, and he was, if you look at that, Toney got the ball at that type of clip when he was on there. The only 50-plus players who saw more targets per route in Toney's rookie season were Antonio Brown, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, and A.J. Brown. That's pretty damn good company. Whether he, again, has done enough to warrant that, we've at least seen him shoulder passing games. So with a full offseason to learn the playbook with Andy Reid, to gel with Mahomes, I do think Toney can do it all. I think he's got that deep speed. He's great with the ball in his hands too. I'm a huge fan of Kadarius Toney. He's going around 7 right now. And I've been gobbling him up at that price. Wide receiver 4 or so would be perfect on your teams as that. Gabe Davis, can I quit him? We'll find out. I don't know that I'll ever be able to quit Gabe Davis. The team apparently hasn't quit on him because GM Brandon Beane saying he's very confident in Davis remaining his number 2 receiver. I do think that ankle injury played a big factor. He just did not, Gabe Davis, look healthy at all through the early parts of the season. And then Josh Allen gets hurt. His downfield throws are limited. And that's the biggest part of Davis's game is separating, getting deep. In the playoffs, we saw the glimpses of the guy we thought we were going to go all year. And maybe he is just a complete flash in the pan and will have his booms and have his busts. And that's what we got to accept. But I think that ceiling we all bought into last year, we're all so excited for. If him and Allen can stay healthy, I really think that still exists and that it's going to be complete post-hype, bounce-back price tag, around 7 or 8. Him versus Tony, really interesting debate at that same price. Like, which one do you go? I most often find myself leaning Tony because I get Mahomes a lot at his price tag. But I love Gabe. I love this player. We'll see what their teams do at their respective wide receiver positions. But if Gabe enters the year as the number 2 receiver, I'm willing to buy back and see what he does for one more go around here. Adam Thielen. This one's big. Not for Thielen. He's released, Adam Thielen, but KJ Osborne could really boom at this point. So he, as a rookie, saw 6+ targets only 8 times. He had 14 fantasy points in 7 of those 8 games. He was a top 24 receiver in 6 of those 8 games, averaging nearly 16 points per game. Obviously, Justin Jefferson, the number 1. He still will be the number 1, but playing number 2 to Justin Jefferson as a rookie because Adam Thielen was hurt throughout that year, KJ Osborne was a beast. And then last year, we didn't get to see too much of 6 or more targets. In fact, it only happened 3 times last year. He had 8 targets, had 5 catches, 73 yards, 1 touchdown, 18.3 points, wide receiver 15. Next time we see him top 6 targets, he had 16 catches, 10 passes, 157 yards, and a touchdown, 31.7 points, the wide receiver 2. And then sees 7 targets in week 17, catches all 7 of them, 59 yards, touchdowns, 18.9, wide receiver 11. So now we have 11 instances across KJ Osborne's career where he has seen 6 or more targets. In those 11 times, he has been he has 14 or more points in 10 of 11. He's been top 24 receiver in 9 of those 11 games. And his average of fantasy points is probably around 18 points. I just think KJ Osborne will be stepping into that monster role with now no more Adam Thielen. Gets peppered at least 6 targets. That's nothing to expect as the wide receiver 2 in a very pass-happy offense here. Maybe they make some moves at the position, but if they don't, I think KJ Osborne is going to explode. And right now, going around pick 130 or so, he's going to be one of the guys I target very, very heavily in 2023 drafts that I already have been. And last wide receiver note, Robert Woods, 2-year contract, $15.3 million. I mean, that's not chump change there for Robert Woods with the Texans. And they've got a completely wide open target totem pole here. He looked better and better as the year went after recovering from that ACL tear. I'm not saying I'm all in on Robert Woods, but he goes in the last round of drafts right now, and he's probably going to see 120 targets. Do with it what you will. Who's throwing him the ball? I don't know. But again, 120 targets at last round price, you can do worse. This price tag definitely suggests a heavy role for Robert Woods this year. Last but not least, a couple quick tight end notes. And again, that last plea, last big for your thumbs up to continue to help us grow Wolfpack. We'll be starting to get the live streams kicking much more regularly here. I know I've been hibernated so far in 2023. If you missed the intro there, wedding planning, especially screenwriting, got a lot of things going on here in 2023 that are super, super exciting. It's all been good busy, but it just fantasy had to get kind of put on the back burner for a few weeks. But now we got the free agency, and your boy is ready to light it up. So let's go. Tight ends, let's bring it home and wrap this stream up. Evan Engram gets franchised by the Jags. I love it. We know Doug Peterson loves to throw to his tight ends. I called that in the beginning of the preseason. Everybody's shitting on me saying Evan Engram can't catch, so who cares if he sees so many targets? Because he's going to suck anyways. He's going to drop them all. He ends up having himself a great season with the Jags. What an absolutely perfect fit. And I know Calvin Ridley, who we were just raving about, will be there. He's going to eat into the workload. Absolutely. But 98 targets, 5th at the position, 17.1% target share, solid, 22.6% target rate, 11th at the position. Very, very nice. ran 300 of his snaps out of the slot. So pretty much a glorified big slot receiver. That was number one among all tight ends in terms of slot snaps, 5th in routes run. I mean, the guy did it all. 612 air yards, 8th there. Was a beast and ultimately finished really, really well with 10.4 points per game, was the tight end 7, 73 receptions, 3rd among the position, 4th in receiving yards with 766. I can keep going. Yards after the catch, 460. 2nd on that. He had a great season, Evan Engram. And yes, again, it's going to be more competitive this year with Calvin Ridley. But how many times do you see a tight end? I mean, 15 target day, 10 target day, 11 target day, 10 target day. Very, very few tight ends can match that type of volume. This is a pass first, pass second, pass third type of offense that's only going to embrace that further. I mean, he had a 40-point day, 162 yards and 2 touchdowns on 11 catches. Very, very few people possess that type of ceiling at the tight end position. So I love that he's back. He wanted to be back. The team franchised him, made sure he's back there. Hopefully they iron out a long-term deal and keep one of the biggest athletic freaks at the position there because they clearly know how to use him with Doug Peterson. That was one of our best calls that really panned out and will continue to do so. And just that note there, Trevor Lawrence equals 2023 Jalen Hurts. Yeah, I mean, when you got Calvin Ridley, so you got your true bona fide number 1, Christian Kirk, a great slot number 2, amazing explosive weapon in Evan Engram there from the tight end position. Travis Etienne, untapped receiving potential. Oh, and Zay Jones, a monster in this offense last year too. I really think Trevor Lawrence is just going to go bananas this year with all these weapons around him. A complete steal where he's going in the middle rounds, 6, 7. Like if you miss out on those elite quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence is going to be the one that jumps in and joins those guys at that discounted price. So I've been very much targeting him if I don't get a Pat Mahomes, a Jalen Hurts type of situation. Juwan Johnson signing a 2-year contract, which is actually a much bigger deal than you might expect. Over the final 7 games of last year, Johnson went on a span with 7 touchdowns, most among tight ends. Over 7-game span, 7 touchdowns. 5 of those 7 games were top 10 finishes, 71% of them. 4 were top 5, and 2 of those final 7 were top 2. I mean, this guy has insane ceiling, and it is very boom or bust. That's the risk with him. So seasonally, it can be tricky because you put him in there, and maybe he wins you the week. He truly is one of those tight ends that can actually win you a week, like Evan Engram, who we just talked about. He can get Juwan Johnson 25 points at the position. Happened multiple times last year. But when he doesn't show up, he doesn't show up at all. 0. But that's a lot of tight ends. It's touchdown or bust. Why not get one of the guys, Juwan Johnson, a converted receiver that has proven to be a great scoring threat in the red zone. Now he gets Derek Carr, so they'll probably be throwing even more often in the red zone than the Taysom Hill bullshit experience that we're so used to. And this was the guy, Juwan Johnson was the tight end 8 last year on the season. So I go almost undrafted right now in early underdog drafts. As your tight end 3, he's got multiple spike weeks in him. Last year and this year back in an offense that knows how to use him. Last 2 notes here to wrap up the stream. Titans OC, new OC, Tim Kelly, who I'm a big fan of. I liked him with the Texans. I think he got dealt a raw, pretty tough hand there. I'm a big fan of him coming into the Titans organization, getting the promotion here. I think he's going to do good things for them. Get Todd Downing out of there for the love of fucking God. All right, Tim Kelly. He says we're going to elect to continue to grow Chigoziem Okonkwo, who we talked about a lot at the tail end of last year. We're going to continue to elect and grow his skills and his abilities to utilize him more. Did a great job of making plays. We just need to make sure he's in a position to do that even more often in 2023. Love that quote because I love this player. 6'5", 4.5 speed, athletic freak. Great with the ball in his hands after the catch. I want to know he's going to be used. And if he's going to be used, he's going to perform. That's what happened last year. Was a beast all of that second half of the season. Multiple top 6 weeks to close out 2023 or 2022 rather as a rookie. Big fan of Chig. Think he could do some great things. And last note is Jonnu Smith has been traded to the Falcons. Two kind of takeaways there is one, it frees up Hunter Henry in an offense for the Pats. I think is going to be a lot better. They now have no Meyers, so who's going to get the targets there? Is it Devontae Parker? Is it Hunter Henry? Maybe it is. Maybe he becomes the cog. I think their number 1 receiver isn't on the roster yet. We'll find out soon, hopefully, Pats fans. Who knows what's happening there. But I do think this does make Hunter Henry that much more appealing. In his games without Jonnu, he has been significantly better fantasy-wise and real-life-wise. So this is big for him. And then it's just like, Kyle Pitts, is Jonnu really a threat to him? No, he shouldn't be. But any extra mouths that could give Arthur Smith a reason to not have Kyle Pitts on the field, It's just annoying because we know Arthur Smith is going to take whatever excuse he can to not have Kyle Pitts play. So as much as we all want to love Pitts and we'll all see the hype storm pick back up again this year because he's just so damn athletic and he's such a great practice, warrior catching touchdown after touchdown. There's just another reason why you kind of want to hit the brakes and not go for Kyle Pitts when he's going around 5, 6 around Keenan Allen and Terry McLaurin and some of these players that could be genuine wide receiver ones for you. That's where you're going to have to take Kyle Pitts. And another reason to just be annoyed by him with Jonnu Smith there? Nah, no thanks. Whew. Well, Peck, that's just day one of free agency, as well as we did kind of go backwards to the combine and franchise tags and all that to recap a bunch of the news you may have missed if you've been waiting for us to be your lone source of fancy news. So I wanted to hit as much of it as we can. Big quarterback news early on. Lots more, though, dominoes to fall across so many positions. So we will be back, whether it's Thursday. We do want to wait and see where these things lead. But, I mean, we still have Miles Sanders, David Montgomery, Devin Singletary, Donta Foreman, Kareem Hunt, Damian Harris, Jeff Wilson at the running back position, Alexander Madison. I mean, the wide receiver position, a little ugly, but we got DJ Chark, Odell Beckham, Juju, Thielen now, Paris Campbell, Darius Slayton, some talents out there that could land anywhere. And then the tight end, we're waiting on Dalton Schultz, Mike Gesicki. Both those guys, really smooth athletes. I really want to see Schultz go reunite with Kellen Moore with the Chargers. I think he'd be a top 3 tight end there. So we have a lot of news still to break. So come on back for part 2. If you haven't already, hit that sub button to make sure you are with us when we do go live again and recap all that extra news. That thumbs up again on the way out would be so greatly appreciated. All of our content is at rotostreetjournal.com. We breed and feed fantasy wolves. And one last plug. You keep hearing me reference draft price. That's because Underdog is already rolling out. It's called the 2023 Big Board. $10 buy-in. Get you a shot to win $200K for first place. Get in while the going is hot. Well, we don't know some of these ADP values. That's where you can get some steals. Obviously, there's some risk to that too, depending on where people land and where these rookies go. But it is so much fun. Code RSJ gets you up to $100 matched. So click the link in the description or just download the app. Use code RSJ and check out Underdog. So much fun there. And check out again, rotostreetjournal.com. All of our content. We're going to start pumping out more and more and more, debuting a new website, merch, all that good stuff. So cheers. Thanks so much. It felt good to get back, Wolfpack. I hope you enjoyed. We did have some questions, comments. Why am I signing off? I want to say hi to whoever we got. Waller to the Giants. Darren Waller, the Giants. Let's go. Giuseppe's pump. Go share. Hey, Giuseppe, didn't we win you $1,000 if I'm not mistaken the last time we went live with like a 200-1 bet that you hit? Love to see it. My guy. Charlie Middlelakis. Obviously, if whoever we like at number 1 pans out, so you're worth any price. But as a Panthers fan, we absolutely got fleeced. Yeah, so you're a Panthers fan. Sorry to hear that. But yes, that is absolutely rough. Good to see you alive. I'm ready for football. Jeremiah, I'm already ready. It's only March. Wake me up when they have a Brian Breakfast Club. Complete sleep. Yeah. Let's serve the porridge up there. And Penny going to the Eagles is actually interesting given Sanders is gone. So that'll be something me and Truth will have to break down in our next show. Cheers, guys. Thank you again so much for being here. rotostreetjournal.com. Breed and feed you fantasy wolves. And a wolf for fantasy sheep. Be the wolves, guys. Later.